What you're about to listen to is very frightening and terrifying. So you've been warned. Alright, first up, number 10, let's talk about Zachary Davis, who was on Dr. Phil talking about how he murdered his mom and attempted to murder his brother. The details are very chilling and creepy. This guy is only a teenager and he just seems super cool, calm, and collected. Davis was only 15 years old when he murdered his mom. He hit her on the head with a sledgehammer.
And you beat her to death with what?
Sledgehammer.
He hit his mother repeatedly, about 12 times right in the skull while she was sleeping. After he killed his mother, he set his house on fire in an attempt to kill his older brother Josh. This kid just shows no remorse for what he did. During the interview, he described what it actually sounded like to hit his mom with a sledgehammer, and then he began laughing.
And what did it sound like?
There was this wet thumping sound.
Yeah.
This guy has serial killer written all over him. Davis appeared in court for sentencing after a few years went by, so at the age of 17 years old, he received an automatic life sentence for first-degree murder. In the state he was tried for, which was Tennessee, a life sentence is 60 years with eligibility for parole after 51 years. So he was given the 60 years for the life sentence. He was also given 15 to 20 years for other charges in the crime. Davis will have to spend at least 71 years in prison. It seems like he could be in prison for up to 100 years. So unless this guy can become the world's oldest person, I'm not too sure he's going to be able to leave prison in his lifetime. Next up we have a cartel hitman who became one of the most prolific killers in US history. Well, this guy is up next at number 9.
How many people you killed?
About 36 people. You can't imagine what people have told me when they hired me to go and kill a person for them. After I get paid, they told me, you know what, Martinez? I feel a weight have lifted from my heart.
So that was Jose Martinez, who seems to enjoy what he does. It's his day job. People actually pay this man to kill who they want to be killed. He has killed dozens of victims in 12 different states. He said that he might have killed at least 36 people, he's not too sure, and that spanned over 3 decades. Martinez received a 50-year sentence for a murder in Alabama, and on top of that he received 10 life sentences for 9 more confirmed murders, and also for an attempted murder in California. I'm not sure how this guy was able to commit so many crimes, and only just recently he's been caught. When he was asked, would you ever retire from being a hitman? And this is what he said.
They say once a gangster, always a gangster. Once a killer, always a killer.
You think?
See.
Martinez isn't fazed that he has been caught. He said, it doesn't scare me. He knows he's going to be electrocuted. Moving on to number 8, we have 6-year-old Joel Rifkin, who has admitted to murdering 17 plus people, and the actual number is it's still unknown today. Rifkin went on a 4-year killing spree and was very surprised when he wasn't caught for so long. He killed people in New York City and in Long Island, New York.
Tragedy happens in lives. Unfortunately, it was their lives.
The world wouldn't know his name until after his killing spree had ended. Now, in a rare prison interview, serial killer Joel Rifkin talks about his sickening crimes down to the...
Rifkin seemed to remember a lot of the details during his kills and seemed really proud of what he has done. Rifkin was sentenced to 203 years in prison for the murders of 9 women, and there still seems to be a lot more victims to uncover. Number 7.
Do you admit to being evil, Richard?
We are all evil in some form or another, are we not?
I don't believe that all people are evil. Well, that was Richard Ramirez, who became known as the Night Stalker. He was an American serial killer, rapist, and burglar who went on a crime spree at nighttime back in 1984. We don't know the exact amount of people he has killed, but he was charged with 13 deaths. He was given the death penalty, but he actually died waiting to be killed. I don't know if that's ironic. Ramirez died from B-cell lymphoma, which was described as blood cancer in the lymph nodes. During an interview, Richard seemed very relaxed, but didn't seem in the right state of mind.
I'm asking you the questions, my friend.
Yes, I am evil.
Number 6.
The cops knew who I was. After Richard Mallory died, I left prints everywhere, and they covered it up.
This interview was just one day before Aileen Wuornos' execution. Wuornos was an American serial killer who murdered 7 men in Florida back in '89 by shooting them at point blank range. In court, she tried to justify the killings, saying that she was acting only in self-defense. Wuornos was given the death sentence in the state of Florida, and she died by lethal injection back in 2002 at the age of 46 years old. This woman was saying that she wasn't good at what she does. I don't know why you want to be good at killing people. Like, she was like disappointed in herself, disappointed she got caught and she was sloppy. This woman is just totally insane, and during the interview you can tell that this woman is bipolar because she would be so calm and then out of nowhere she'd be yelling and she'd just go insane, she'd be crazy. Alright, let's move on to number 5.
I would let them come to me. Just remote area. Come go to a remote area that's not anywhere near where you live.
That is Israel Keys, who describes his strategy on how he killed 8 people. He was very calm while eating a bagel, drinking a coffee, just like it's a normal day.
No one who knows me, or who has ever known me, who knows anything about me, really.
Keys was being held in jail at the Anchorage Correctional Complex on suspicion of murder when he committed suicide. So at the time, police and investigators didn't even know who they were dealing with. His trial wasn't scheduled to begin for a few months. Well, the investigation went on after the suicide, and it was found that he was undoubtedly linked to at least 3 murders, but there are another 11 murders being investigated, and he could have killed a lot more than that. Number 4.
You don't feel bad about killing anyone?
Not personally, that I've personally done myself, no. I just view things as objects. People, animals, trees, cars, they're just all the same to me.
So that was John Hughes, who was only 33 years old during that interview back in 2010.
As far as the murders that I've been a part of, but there's been quite a few.
A dozen?
At least.
20?
Under.
Somewhere around the 15?
Somewhere around in there.
So he doesn't know how many he has killed, but he thinks it's just shy of about 20 people, and he just seems to be proud of that. During his court hearing, Hughes has been representing himself. After time went on, he was actually trying to look for an attorney because he wants to be put to death as soon as possible, and he wasn't able to do it himself. Clearly this guy isn't in the right state of mind. Number 3.
One of them is Arthur J. Shawcross. Shawcross has murdered 11 women and is serving a 250-year prison sentence.
Arthur Shawcross is a psychopath. He feels absolutely no emotions, no pain. His murder spans from 1972 to 1989. He was a very intelligent killer who killed 14 people. At least that is how many were known. Shawcross was able to get away with these horrific crimes for almost 20 years.
Do you have any comprehension of the suffering that you've brought the families of the people that you've killed?
I don't have any remorse for some reason.
This case went to court, and Shawcross pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity with testimony from psychiatrist Dorothy Lewis. She said he had brain damage and had multiple personality disorder, and also he suffers from post-traumatic stress from when he was sexually abused as a child. He was convicted to life in prison without parole, and he actually died at the age of 63 years old due to cardiac arrest. And you know what, I think this world is a much better and for sure a safer place without that guy. Moving into number 2.
Essentially a normal person. I had good friends. I led a normal life, except for this one small but very potent and very destructive segment of it that I kept very secret, very close to myself, and didn't let anybody know about it.
I know that was kind of hard to hear because of all the background music, but yeah, you guys know who that is. That's Ted Bundy. That's Ted Bundy's last ever interview before being executed. He's another serial killer who was very intelligent and seems to be a pretty normal person. Well, the kept secret he was talking about during the interview was the fact that he is a killer and he has killed over 30 people. Ted Bundy killed 30 plus people in just a span of 4 years. Ted Bundy is so intelligent that once he was caught, he was able to escape prison not once, but twice. Imagine knowing that a serial killer escaped prison and is on the run in your city or town. Ted Bundy's family and friends were totally shocked when they heard the news. They were shocked at what Ted Bundy has done. They were very confused because it just didn't add up. They couldn't picture this guy, this Ted Bundy guy, was capable of killing anyone, let alone murdering over 30 people.
Part of the shock and horror for my dear friends and family years ago when I was first arrested was that there was no clue.
Finally, at number 1, we have the calmest, most intelligent serial killer possibly of all time. We're talking about Jeffrey Dahmer. During his interview, he revealed every single detail that was asked from him. And when he talked about it, he didn't have any remorse, and it didn't disturb him.
These obsessive desires and thoughts wanting to control them, to, I don't know how to put it, possess them permanently.
And that's why you killed them.
Right, right. Not because I was angry with them, not because I hated them, but because I wanted to keep them with me.
Jeffrey Dahmer became known as the Milwaukee Cannibal, or the Milwaukee Monster, who killed 17 men and boys that spanned decades. And he ate some of his victims as well. Dahmer, during his trial, was found to be legally sane, so he knew and fully understood what he was doing. He was in the right state of mind. He was sentenced to 15 life sentences, which equals out to about 999 years. Dahmer was only 19 years old when he committed his first act of violence. Once he was caught, he became international news and very famous. Everyone questioned, how did he get away with so many murders for so long?
It was my way of remembering their appearance, their physical beauty. I also wanted to keep something. If I couldn't keep them there with me whole, at least I felt that I could keep their skeletons.
Starting off this countdown, we have Eileen Wuornos. Eileen Wuornos is often considered the first female serial killer. She was found guilty of killing 7 men. She would murder them, rob them, and then drive home in their cars. Although she claims every murder was self-defense. In our interview, we can see how lax she is when talking about killing.
Just shot in self-defense, boom, boom, boom. You know, they weren't cut up, they weren't sliced up, no OJ jazz, you know. And he said, I did the most horrendous crime in the whole wide world.
Death and murder literally doesn't faze her at all. In fact, she claims that what she did wasn't even bad. Yeah, she tries to justify her actions by saying she just shot them, as if that's not a big deal.
But you've been convicted of killing 7 men.
Everybody's looking at the number.
Does that not, you killed 7 men, 7 strangers. Does that not make you a serial killer?
So I didn't kill them every day, did I?
Again, she's acting like her killing 7 men isn't a big deal. Like, oh, it's just 7 men, people have done worse. It's crazy. Moving on to number 9, we have the Night Stalker. Richard Ramirez, otherwise known as the Night Stalker, was an American serial killer and robber who killed 13 to 16 plus individuals. At his trials, the judge stated that he never showed any remorse for these doings. I think the creepiest part about his interview is when he admits to being evil.
Do you admit to being evil, Richard?
We are all evil in some form or another, are we not? Yes, I am evil. Not 100%, but I am evil.
And we see him try to justify his killings by saying the government does worse things to people than what he has done.
Serial killers do on a small scale what governments do on a large one. They are a product of the times, and these are bloodthirsty times. Even psychopaths have emotions if you dig deep enough, but then again, maybe they don't.
In our It spot, we have Edward Edwards. Edward Wayne Edwards, otherwise known as the Hook Man or the Man with the Hook, was an American con artist turned serial killer. In fact, when he committed his long list of crimes, he never wore a mask because he wanted to be famous. In 2010, he did an interview and confessed to all his crimes. Again, it makes me so uncomfortable listening to how killers took someone's life.
Taking his hand, he's going through the bottom of the duffel bag trying to find the cigarettes, and I'm standing right here, and I have the sawed-off shotgun, and I ease it out of the bag while Danny's down there looking, and
He's just too too calm talking about all of this. During the interview, he also stated that he wanted the death penalty and thinks that he deserves it.
I want the death penalty.
You don't want to be in prison for a long time on everything else that's been going on.
Right, I'm not a healthy man.
In our 7th spot, we have Paris Bennett. During an interview with Piers Morgan, Paris Bennett, who at 13 years of age killed his young sister, admits that he did this as a way to punish his mother.
Specifically in the end.
Yes.
To cause your mother maximum pain. This has achieved your goal, which was to effectively mean your mother lost both her children at once.
In 2007, Bennett convinced their babysitter to leave early and then proceeded to stab his sister 17 times. It's such a tragic case. What makes it worse is how he pretends to say he loved his sister. In the interview, he was asked to describe why he loved his sister, and he couldn't.
Because I loved her. I loved her with every fiber of my being.
They say it's like asking a colorblind person to describe the color red. They can't do it. He can't describe love because he can't feel it.
Exactly like she said, it's because Paris is incapable of feeling emotions. No guilt, no love, nothing. Moving on to number 6, we have Angela Simpson.
Right.
You murdered this man.
Yes.
You tortured him.
Of course.
This is an interview with killer Angela Simpson. She was arrested after torturing and killing a man in a wheelchair for snitching. During this interview, she tells exactly what happened, how she did it, and why. The scariest part is how forward she is about this all. She doesn't care that she's going to prison or that she killed someone.
You're not here to pretend to be remorseful.
Of course not. Why would I do that?
Are you remorseful?
Not at all.
She's not remorseful at all, and she's very open about everything.
To my house, walked him down the street. I don't know why the media acts like the mother couldn't walk. He walked very well. Walked him upstairs, kicked his ass.
Like, imagine being okay with taking someone's life. This interview sends shivers down my spine just listening to her and watching the stillness in her body and the calmness in her voice. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Manuel Vela. In 2016, a 28-year-old man, Manuel Vela, was arrested after killing his girlfriend and their unborn baby. In this interview, you can tell that Manuel suffered from schizophrenia. He claims that the father told him to kill his girlfriend and her baby. Keep in mind, he is the father to her baby. And then he says that he is the Antichrist.
And that's where I cut her open, when he told me to.
Who told you to?
The father, it's just the same one who was to communicate with Jesus Christ is when he was there.
Although it seems like he is intoxicated during this interview, he is not. He's just experiencing hallucinations and delusions. In this interview, he also claims he would receive commands from outer space and extraterrestrials. A lot of people found this interview disturbing just because you can see how far gone Manuel is. He's no longer in control of himself. In our 4th spot, we have Arthur Shawcross. Arthur John Shawcross was an American serial killer in Rochester, New York that took the lives of 13 individuals. His first 2 murders were committed in 1972. He was caught for both and then sentenced to 25 years. But after serving 15 years, he was released on parole. That's when he continued on with the killings and took the lives of 11 different people. His interview is creepy for a number of reasons.
Do you remember killing her?
Yeah, possibly.
He gives me the chills. He's just twitching and his voice is just so unnerving. But it gets worse once he starts talking about his crimes.
How did you kill her?
Probably strangulation.
How do you know when they're dead?
How? I don't know, just do.
You can see that he won't admit it directly. He says maybe he killed her and maybe she died by strangulation. It gets worse.
Reach over my shoulder like this, right behind my neck, and I pull out a brand new machete. When she backed out, I come up behind her.
He's just a ruthless killer. In our 3rd spot, we have Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy was an infamous serial killer who was responsible for murdering 30 women. Although it's thought that this number may be even higher. He would often kill these women in brutal ways. In his interviews, he shows no remorse for his actions, and the calm tone of his voice is very disturbing.
I can see how certain feelings and ideas developed in me to the point where I began to act out on them. Certain very violent and very destructive feelings.
Throughout this whole interview, Bundy tries to gain sympathy from the interviewer and the audience. You can see how he's trying to manipulate your emotions, which is terrifying. A lot of people commented saying that Bundy is trying to act human in these interviews. He knows exactly what to say and how to say it to manipulate you.
It was like something had, say, snapped, that I knew that I couldn't control it anymore, that these barriers that I had learned as a child, that had been instilled in me, were not enough to hold me back with respect to seeking out and harming somebody.
It's a huge reason why he was so famous and had a huge media following. Moving on at number 2, we have Beth Thomas. Beth Thomas was a young girl featured in a documentary titled The Child of Rage. At such a young age, Beth displayed psychopathic tendencies, including harming her brother on a number of occasions and trying to kill her parents. Her parents were terrified of her and her brother Jonathan's safety, as they should be. Take a look at her interview.
Why is your brother afraid of you?
Because I hurt him so much.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what, at nighttime, what do your parents do to your door?
Lock it shut.
Why do they lock it shut?
Because they don't want me to hurt John.
So on a number of occasions, Beth would go into her brother's room at night to try and kill him. On top of that, she used to steal knives from the kitchen to try and harm her family with.
Big sharp ones.
And what do you want to do with those knives?
Kill John and Mommy with them, and Daddy.
That's not all. Here is her recounting the time she hurt Jonathan.
And what happened to your brother? Tell me about it.
His head hurt real bad, but his chin, he had to have stitches in it.
Now apparently doctors deemed that she acted this way as part of her traumatic past. Now it's said that after years of therapy, she is now a healthy adult. And in our number 1 spot, we have Jeffrey Dahmer.
I desensitized myself to it. I don't know, I went to great lengths.
Between 1878 to 1991, American serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer murdered and dismembered 17 men and boys. He would pack the victims' body parts into plastic bags and bury them behind his parents' home. He would also take disturbing photographs of his deceased victims and keep certain body parts as souvenirs. He also had tendencies to eat the victims. This gave him the name the Milwaukee Cannibal, or the Milwaukee Monster. Upon searching his home, police found albums full of pictures of body parts, and his place was filled with human remains. Before his death, Jeffrey had an interview with Inside Edition and other news channels. In these interviews, he shares gory details about the men he killed and why he did it.
One time I brought this young man back to the hotel room, the Ambassador Hotel. Was just planning on drugging him and spending the night with him. Had no intention of hurting him.
What's creepy is how calm he is talking about all this. Like, he's murdered so many people and shows no remorse, just like all the other serial killers on this list.
I was handcuffed, and it was just the realization that there was no point in trying to hide my actions anymore.
Hearing him say that he kept the dead with him as long as possible makes me sick. When police raided his house, they found heads were in the fridge and freezer, 2 skulls were on display in the house, and they found a 57-gallon drum filled with decomposing bodies in his room. Starting off this countdown, we have Stephen McDaniel.
Yeah, Lauren was my neighbor. We're just trying to find out where she is at this point. I mean, no one has seen her since Saturday. I mean, the last time anyone heard from her was an email that she sent out, and no one's heard from her since.
In June of 2011, Stephen McDaniel killed his neighbor and classmate Lauren Giddings. Apparently, he had a fantasy of committing the perfect murder, but this murder was anything but perfect, and he got caught pretty soon. So the day her body was found, Stephen actually was interviewed by a news station. Throughout his whole interview, he tries to act concerned and shocked by her disappearance.
Do you know any enemies she might have had, somebody that might want to hurt her?
No, we don't know where she is. I mean, the only thing we can think is that maybe she went out running and someone snatched her.
He also tries to make it seem like she got killed after going out for a run. But throughout the interview, he makes it clear that he knew far more about Lauren than he had let on. At one point, the interview informs him that her body was found. And you can see the moment that he realized he was screwed.
We just don't know where she is.
What about in the parking lot area? I know they've been doing a lot of, I think that's where they have recovered the body or whatever they recovered from there.
Body?
Had you seen anything there? Had you seen anything there? I mean, we don't know if this is the same person. You know what I mean? Like, they took out a body there earlier. We don't know if it's the same person or not. That's why we're trying to ask people if they know who lived there. Are you okay, sir?
After taking a second to regroup himself, he continues on with the interview, but you can tell he knows he's been caught.
I don't know anyone that would want to hurt her. She was as nice a person as there is.
In 2014, McDaniel pleaded guilty to the murder. And if you guys are liking this video so far, then make sure to give it a big thumbs up. Also, make sure to check out part 1 to this video. Coming in at number 9, we have Wayne.
With a psychopath, I would argue that emotion is like being colorblind for them, and nothing we can do is actually going to instill a sense of empathy. This is really a waste of time.
This man, only referred to as Wayne, was the subject of the 2000 Channel 4 documentary titled Psychopath. Now, I couldn't find much about him besides what the documentary said, but apparently Wayne stabbed and killed someone that pissed him off. That still hasn't been verified, but that's what the rumors are. But what's startling is how he got an extremely rare score of 40 out of 40 on the psychopathy checklist. Like, this dude is on another level.
The therapists are wonderful. I learn a great deal from them. Sometimes it can be hard. I suppose that's the way it's supposed to be when you're growing up. I'm ready to go now. I know that that decision will come from others who have already seen. They've seen my change.
It's creepy how he's trying to convince the therapist that he's fine and should be let out. In our 8th spot, we have the grave robber. Now, I for sure have talked about this video before, but it definitely deserves a spot on this list. This interview is with an unidentified teen from the 90s. In the video, he talks all about how he robs graves and then proceeds to tell us how to do it and how to do it so you don't get caught and what to do afterwards with the body parts.
Now, so what you do is you grab it around here. You grab it here and peel it back like that. Okay? Peel it back. Alright? And it'll pull off. It'll make a disgusting sound.
Throughout this whole video, he's holding a real life skull that he robbed from someone's grave. Now, what's creepy about this video is that no one knows who this guy is. Rumor has it that the video surfaced on the dark web and later got leaked and then uploaded to YouTube, but we don't know for sure. Like, just look at how creepy this is.
Right, there's a piece of the brains. Let's see. Right, there's another piece of the brains. If I had something wet here, I would wet them up and let you see how the brains look.
It's honestly very unsettling. And he also gives us tips for how not to get caught.
Never leave witnesses. If you have to knock them out so that way they think it's a dream. It's best not to kill, but if it's necessary, do it.
Like, who is this video for? And why did he make it? Moving on to number 7, we have Edmund Kemper. Ed Kemper, also known as Big Ed, is an American serial killer who killed 10 individuals. It all started back in 1964 when Ed killed his grandparents at the age of 15. He claimed that he killed them just to see what it felt like.
Saying I'd wanted to kill my mother since I was 8 years old, and I'm not proud of that. It started with surrogates at a non-human level. Physical objects, my possessions, other people's, destruction of things that are cared about, and then destruction of things that are living on a lower level, small animals, insects, animals and then finally people.
As he said in this interview, he literally had an urge to kill since he was young. After the death of his grandparents, he was locked away for 5 years. Then in 1969, he was released at the age of 21. But he didn't learn his lesson because he went on to murder 8 more individuals, one of them being his own mother. Eventually, he was convicted again. Here we have him talking about his first murder, his grandparents.
It started coming to a head again, so I went back down. I ran away back down there. And then a month later, I'm up living with my grandparents in the mountains, and 10 months later, I murdered them. It made it worse to be on top of a mountain. I was literally on top of a mountain when it happened. And I sensed everybody in the world just stopping what they were doing, turning around, saw what I did, and are coming to get me. And I knew I was paranoid at that moment. I knew anybody that came up there and gave me a funny look or a fishy eye or quizzical look, I'd have blown their brains out thinking they were coming to get me.
In our 6th spot, we have Kevin Davis. This interview is very disturbing to watch, so be warned. On March 27th, 2010, Kevin Davis killed his mother, Kimberly Hill. That morning, he asked his mom if he could take his own life, and Kimberly basically kind of just dismissed him. And that was not the answer he was hoping for. I guess he wanted his mother to fight for him to live. So he ended up killing his mother instead. In this interview, he calmly tells exactly what he did to his mom. Every last detail.
I tried to strangle her with a cord. Ripped the cord from a video game console controller. That didn't work. She was sitting on the couch watching TV. Okay. That didn't work out too well. She started screaming, and so I went to her room, opened a drawer at the very bottom to the right. I pulled out a hammer.
Then you can guess what he did with that hammer. But it doesn't stop there.
That's when you reached in and grabbed the brain? Yeah, I kicked at it a bit. Then I just, that was kind of silly, but then I just decided to reach in and kind of just...
That is horrifying. But that's not all he did to his poor mother, but it's far too disturbing to talk about this case any further. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with Liam McCatsney. On December 2nd, 2016, Sarah Stern went missing. Who's to blame for this? Her friends, Liam McCatsney and Preston Taylor. Basically, Liam had learned that Sarah had been left a large sum of money from her mother when she passed away. She told Liam about this, and Liam and Preston made a plan to kill her and then steal the money. But they were caught after a former friend secretly videotaped Liam's confession.
Yeah, and dude, alright, so I'm hanging out with her. She has, we went to the bank, she took some money out, not all of her money. We're counting it out, and then she goes to walk out the front door. I choke her out, drag her. My biggest problem was the dog.
So Liam had went to Sarah's house, strangled her, and then stole $9,000. Less than he thought there was, but that was because Sarah spent a lot of the money already. The saddest part is during the taping when he said exactly how he killed her.
It took me a half an hour to kill her. I thought I was going to be able to choke her out and have her out in like a couple minutes.
After that, the two threw her body over a bridge. It's so disturbing. Sarah thought that she could trust Liam. She never thought that he would take her life. Coming in at number 4, we have John Wayne Gacy. Chances are you've heard of him. He was an American serial killer often called the Killer Clown. He got his name since he would dress up as Pogo the Clown for neighborhood events or children's parties. Over several years, Gacy murdered 33 people. In 1978, Gacy was finally caught. The interview you are about to see was the first time he ever did an interview about the case. It was filmed while he was on death row. And he did it to try and get people to see that he was innocent. He's not innocent though.
People don't want to know the truth and the honesty of it. If they want to be convinced or brainwashed into what they believe, then fine, then go ahead and kill me. But vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, because you will have executed somebody that didn't commit the crime.
He thinks people were brainwashed into thinking he killed those people, even though all the evidence suggests that he did. They were found all over his property.
When they paint the image that I was this monster who picked up these altar boys along the street and swatted them like flies, I said, this is ludicrous.
The craziest part of the interview is that Gacy claims to have taken a high amount of truth serum and even then maintained his innocence.
Taken 3.5 hours of truth serum. And under sodium amytal, the maximum amount that I could have, it shows that I have no knowledge of the crime whatsoever.
But there's absolutely no proof anywhere that he even took truth serum. So there you go. He's a creepy liar and a killer. In our 3rd spot, we have Michael Ross.
Well, I'm a serial killer. I've killed 8 women, 6 in this state and 2 in New York.
Michael Ross was an American serial killer that between 1981 to 1984 murdered 8 women. What's creepy is how in his interview, he just calmly straight up admits that he's a serial killer, as if it's no big deal. He then proceeds to say that it's only 8 women that he's killed. Other people have higher counts. It's as if he finds it okay because the number is small to him.
I'm not a big serial killer, by the way. 8 people, that's nothing. I mean, there's a lot of other guys you can go see.
Now, another part about this interview that creeps me out, much like the others on this list, is how he recounts the time he killed his victim.
I saw this woman walking along the road with a stroller. I pulled off the side of the road. She came into the driveway, walked up the driveway. I was behind the house. She saw me and I grabbed her.
On July 6, 1987, he was sentenced to death. He spent 18 years on death row and then was executed in May of 2005. Moving on, number 2, we have Gerard John Schaefer.
Mr. Schaefer, how long have you been imprisoned?
Since 1973.
And what are you accused of?
Well, do you mean what am I convicted of or what am I accused of? I'm accused of a lot more than I'm convicted of.
This guy is so arrogant, also very creepy. So Gerard Schaefer was a former sheriff's deputy that used his title to kill women. Now, it's thought that he was a serial killer, but this has never been proved. But he was found guilty of murdering 2 women.
First, what are you accused of?
Well, I was accused of originally accused of killing 34 women. But nobody has ever managed to come up with 34 names, jurisdictions, or anything else. It's a false accusation.
So basically, on July 21st, 1973, Schaefer pulled over 2 girls who were hitchhiking, saying that it was illegal in the country, which it wasn't. He then drove them to a swamp area and tied them to a tree. But the girls were lucky. Schaefer was going to shoot them, but right before he was about to, he got a call on his police radio. So he went back to his car to check on it. And when he did, the girls managed to escape and report him. He was then arrested for unlawful imprisonment and aggravated assault. 2 months after he posted bail, he abducted 2 more female hitchhikers, but this time he actually took their lives.
And what is your conviction?
I was convicted of killing 2 in Fort Pierce. I was never shown to be at the crime scene. There was never any link between me and the people that were killed, except the testimony of the mother of one of them.
He's so creepy. Also, notice that he barely blinks. This guy just gives me the heebie-jeebies. In our number 1 spot, we have Issei Sagawa. This case is incredibly messed up and extremely dark. It literally made me feel sick to my stomach just researching about it. So Issei Sagawa is a Japanese man who in 1981 killed and ate a woman named Renee Hartvelt in Paris. But he was never truly convicted of his crimes. He literally only spent 2 days in jail and then was sent back to Japan. And when he was there, he became famous. So famous that he made a living through the public's interest in his crime. Imagine that, literally becoming wealthy for killing someone.
I don't want to kill, but I couldn't find any way to eat the girl's meat fresh, so I thought I have to kill.
So Sagawa apparently had a fantasy to eat beautiful women. He apparently chose Renee because she was beautiful and he wanted to absorb her energy. On June 11th, 1981, he invited Renee over and shot her at the back of the neck. He then ate her over the next 2 days.